We've got more worrying signs for the Canadian economy, and those worrying signs are the fact that 20% of young adults cannot find work. And these are students in university and colleges as well, people who have qualifications to get a job, an entry-level job, and they can't even find it. Not only that, the unemployment rate in Canada overall has jumped to 7%. That's higher than it was for an entire decade. The only time higher was during the pandemic, and obviously there were a lot of jobs gone for obvious reasons. So here is where we are now in 2025. Let's discuss it in today's video.
There's a line for jobs at the LCBO in London, Ontario. I'm not even going to go after the immigrants at all. This is a matter of bad policy coming from people like Mark Miller and Sean Fraser. You can't fault people that are coming over from India to Canada for a better life, and then they get here and there's no jobs. Between March 2023 and March 2025, Canada added 2.5 million people via immigration, but only 260,000 jobs. Jobs for young people, I'm talking like 15 to 18 year olds, let's call it. There's massive unemployment. You bring in all these people, but there's no jobs for them to work.
It's massive supply and demand, right? So there's not a lot of supply for jobs and housing, which keeps wages down and also keeps prices of homes higher. And this is the policies that the government wants to put into place. And you wonder why things are getting so bad in Canada.
According to Stats Canada, over 1 in 5 students looking for a summer job in Canada currently cannot find one. The unemployment rate for full-time students now returning to work in fall is now 20%. This is a massive jump from just 2 years ago when it was only 11%. And just for the record, those were bad numbers as well. And to put this in perspective, the national average for unemployment in Canada is 7%. A young person in Canada is getting hit 3 times harder than the general population. This means fewer chances to save, build, experience, or even just afford basic stuff this summer. So if you're a student in Canada and you can't find a job or an internship this summer despite sending countless applications, those feelings are justified. The numbers speak for themselves, but you just have to dig deeper. There will hopefully be better days to come.
And one of the reasons why we see such high unemployment rates in students looking for summer employment or any sort of job like that is because there is a very clear disappearance of entry-level jobs. People cannot find entry-level jobs. It doesn't even make any sense. What is an entry-level job nowadays? It seems like they're not available, and when they are, you read the qualifications for this job and it doesn't sound like an entry-level job. It sounds like they want at least 3+ years of experience on a lot of these company websites. So that's where we're at again.
Gen Z is facing the worst unemployment rate in decades.
More often than not, it's literally just rejection, and it's always like the automated messages. I've only gotten like one where it's like, oh, you can do like a video interview, but that's like the first stage out of like 7 others, so no luck.
So is it just a feeling that there are no jobs out there, or is Gen Z actually facing an employment problem? According to StatsCan, Canadian graduates between the ages of 15 and 24 are facing the highest unemployment rate this country has seen since the mid-90s. In January 2023, the seasonal adjusted unemployment rate in this group was 10%. Just over 2 years later, it sits at 14.2%. In Quebec, unemployment is below the national average, but it's still creeping up.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. There's also an older generation of baby boomers who haven't left their jobs, but it's really the uncertainty in the market.
And when you add inflation, the trade war with the US, and AI, it's created this environment of volatility and uncertainty.
It really shouldn't be that way. You know, like you put 4 years into your education, you should be able to find at least like a good number of jobs within the field, but it's kind of limited. And so now the option is for a lot of students like me to do a master's or a PhD.
The feds recently announced 6,000 more jobs for youth to attempt to help alleviate the job crunch. Even then, many are losing hope.
It's a little defeating because, it takes time in developing your resume to make sure, you have stuff on it to stand out, to get that interview, to even, kind of get your foot in the door, get connections and stuff like that. So getting the rejection, in which usually comes in the form of an email, it is a little defeating because we put time and effort into it.
The Quebec government's pause on work visas for non-residents could open up some jobs for new graduates.
But these tend to be jobs that are lower pay, but they are suitable for recent graduates because that's how you get your experience.
And at this point, when it comes to internship and jobs, students say they will take whatever they can get to start advancing their careers while they wait for the oldest generation to retire.
And it looks like maybe they have to take some unpaid internships to get that experience, which again is kind of almost like slave labor, let's be honest. And a lot of students, even in this video, mentioned the fact that if they can't find a job, they just go back to more education, going more into debt to try to get a PhD or to change your entire degree to something else that might actually be more profitable later on, or maybe land you a job now, because the desperation is real.
Anyone in Toronto actually employed? I just lost my job a couple weeks ago, and I was so embarrassed for the longest time until I started realizing that everyone around me also doesn't have a job. I think it just really goes to show that the whole idea that getting a 9-to-5, working a salaried job is the most stable. I think we're really starting to see the cracks, and we're starting to realize that that's not the case at all. Like, I have so much more debt than so many other people that I know. Don't have a job, don't have a way of paying my rent, don't have a way as of right now of paying my loans, nothing. So I say that to say, I just don't see the same stability that I think we are sold, the whole idea that it's going to pay off to get these degrees because you're going to be able to get a high-paying, stable job, and you're going to be able to work for the same employer for 40 years and make a bunch of money and do all of these things that are supposed to buy you freedom and independence. I feel like it's bullshit, and so many of us are starting to realize that the real winners aren't us. Let's just put it that way.
It's funny because the CEO of LinkedIn, I think the previous CEO of LinkedIn, might be the current CEO of LinkedIn, said by the mid-2030s that the 9-to-5 job will be extinct. And she mentioned that in the video as well, that 9-to-5 is something that feels like it's going to be unattainable in the future. And she was actually spot on, because if the CEO of LinkedIn, which is one of the biggest job searching and recruiting websites out there right now, if their CEO says that, then you know that they're onto something.
So Canada's job report came out this morning, and it showed that the unemployment rate rose to 7%. Outside of the pandemic, that's the highest the unemployment rate has been in the last 9 years. This wasn't cause for major concern, as Reuters highlighted that the rise was primarily driven by flat employment growth amid population increase. On top of the unemployment rate, the report also showed that about 8,800 jobs were added to the economy, which was higher than expectations. This was the result of a large gain in private sector employment with a reduction in public sector employment following the ending of the federal election. The report also highlighted how the manufacturing sector is especially being hit hard and showing signs of damage from US tariffs and also Canadian retaliatory tariffs. Statistics Canada said there's virtually been no growth since January. Multiple economists said the reading shows that the Canadian labor market is just staying afloat. In my opinion, if these weak employment trends continue, which they likely will if tariffs stay in place, the likelihood of the central bank cutting rates at their next meeting on July 30th is significantly higher.
I don't know. A lot of people said they were going to cut rates before, and they didn't, and they kept rates elevated, which is going to be even worse for people who are paying mortgages and trying to renew their mortgage in the next few months.
So the unemployment rate here in Canada has now reached 7%. And 7% doesn't sound like a lot, but let me tell you something. Last time it reached levels like this was pre-pandemic, somewhere around 2016. Now, to put that to perspective, pre-Liberals, I believe it was hovering around 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off a little bit there, but not by very much. But it's hovering around 7%, and the scary part is it's rising. 7%. Another little perspective show here. 20 to 25% of the youth of this world, the young adults, 20 to 25% unemployment rate. They can't find a job. That should scare everybody. That kind of shows where our economy is heading. That's basically in a toilet. We're the worst of the G7 countries.
The worst of the G7 countries. I've been saying that for a while, and it seems to be very true. In fact, the numbers say that it's true. An unemployment rate of 7% is really bad, but the youth unemployment rate of 20 to 25% I think is even scarier, and he said that as well in this video. Leave your thoughts about this video subject down below in the comment section. Do you think the next time they get the data for unemployment, do you think it's going to be higher than it is right now, or is it actually going to decrease? Leave your thoughts about that down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.